Hello, my name's Nate. Thank you for joining me. This is a video tutorial on the software installation steps for the Axsun Integrated engine from Excelitas Technologies. If you're watching this, you've probably already realized that the knowledge base at docs.axsun.com is your go-to for software downloads and reference manuals and getting started guides and all kinds of other great information about how to operate your Axsun engine. Now I'm going to go to the software installation page for the integrated engine and start there. The integrated engine consists of an Axsun laser and a Axsun data acquisition board, either in the Ethernet or the PCIe configuration. Although the PCIe configuration is physically separate instead of integrated from the laser engine, the process is the same as they use the same basic software. First, let's start by downloading the zip archive. Once this download is complete, we'll go ahead and unzip it. Anywhere on your disk, the downloads folder is fine. Okay, so let's go inside this folder here. You'll see 4 files, and these correspond to the directions that you'll be able to also read on the installing software page. First thing we're going to run is the Visual C++ redistributable installer. This is something that was likely already installed on your system from installation of a previous program unrelated, or potentially just built in to your Windows OS. But we're just going to reinstall it now and guarantee that we have the most up-to-date version, which is simpler than troubleshooting later. Go ahead and agree to the license terms and press install. And user account control will ask if we want to make changes, so we'll say yes. And that was easy. Next, we're going to go down a couple folders into the Axsun OCT tools directory and launch the install Axsun OCT. Again, we'll say yes when it prompts us to make changes to our device. And we'll basically just work through this installer with the defaults selected, accept the license agreement, and we'll let this run for a while. This is installing the National Instruments LabVIEW runtime engine and other dependency components that are required for the GUI tools that Axsun provides, namely the hardware control tool and the image capture tool. In real life, this has taken about 2 or 3 minutes to complete. And once we're done here, we're just going to basically work through the dialogues, and it'll prompt us to restart the computer. So that's a great idea to do at this point. So I'm going to press restart now, and I will be back shortly. Okay, we are back here after a system restart. And the next step in the process is going to be to install some device drivers. If you're using USB connections to either the laser or the DAC board hardware, we'll first need to install USB device driver. I'm going to come over here and open up Device Manager so we can have a look at how things look prior to the device driver installation. You can see to my computer, I have 3 Axsun devices connected. These are the USB connections from the laser and the DAC, and this is the PCIe connection for the DAC. all three of them at this point are unknown devices. So back in the integrated engine components folder, we're going to go up a couple levels here and down into the USB driver folder. There's a batch file here called run me as an administrator. So I'm going to right click and say run as administrator and tell Windows that it's okay to make changes to my device. Now that'll run, and as you can see, it has moved the unknown USB devices up into this Axsun OCT devices category where it has valid drivers now attached to them. We'll close this one out, and we're going to do the same thing for the PCIe device connection. This is in the PCIe driver folder. Right-click Run as Administrator, select Run as Administrator, and we'll wait for that to execute. And now you can see that the memory controller shows up correctly in the Axsun OCT devices tree as Axsun OCT PCIe DAC. We can close that. Now at this point, also for good measure, it's a good idea to restart your devices. So I'm going to power them off and power them back on, just to show that they come back with the correct drivers. Okay, great. So here we have the PCIe DAC and the two USB devices. We can close Device Manager out. Now, if you're going to be using an Ethernet connection instead of USB and PCIe, hang tight. I'll come back to the Ethernet discussion in a minute. First, we should check out the installation success of the GUI tools. So in your start menu, there'll be an image capture tool and a hardware control tool, potentially in a subfolder titled Axsun. And if you don't see them there on your system, then they'll be in your program files directory. Let's start up the hardware control tool. And you can see that it's successfully showing the laser engine and the DAC here in the devices list with USB connections. So that's successful. And we will also start up the image capture tool. The first time that you start it, it'll prompt you for your capture interface, either Ethernet or DAC. And we're starting with PCIe here, so I'll select PCIe. And that was successful. The PCIe green light is shown here, and the tab of PCIe controls is shown here. And on the buffer screen, you'll see a status message that says that it was set up for capture. And that means we are good to go with PCIe and USB. So I will close these, and we will turn our attention to Ethernet connectivity next. To capture packets over Ethernet, we need to install a capture library. There's a link to a potential option called npcap here in the knowledge base. So let's click through to here, and we'll scroll down and download that installer. And then open the file. And basically click through this installer with all of the defaults. All right, that's completed successfully. Shouldn't need to restart after this one. So we close this tab. And then we need to also configure our network adapter configuration with the correct IP address. So we're going to come over and open up the network connections control panel and find our Ethernet network. This happens to be the one I have connected via the Ethernet cable to the DAC right now. And we're going to say properties, and we're going to select the Internet Protocol version 4 and press properties. And then we're going to change this from a dynamic addressing to a static IP addressing and type in 192.168.010.001 and then hit tab, and that'll also populate the subnet mask. And then press OK and close. And at that point, we should have our network adapter IP address set correctly. And we can proceed to go back to the image capture tool. This time there's no PCIe device connected, so it's giving me an error. And I'm going to say OK and select Ethernet this time. And the green light on there means it was successful at finding the network adapter with the correct IP address, and the interface status on the buffer tab reflects that that adequate capture session. And we will also open up the control tool. And here you can see that we've also connected to the devices. Again, the laser engine and the DAC. This time, the DAC via Ethernet and to the laser via the DAC pass-through. So that concludes the software installation steps for both the Ethernet configuration and the USB/PCIe configuration for the Axsun laser engine and DAC board. Thank you for watching.